And we are back with more Everlasting Summer. So we're gonna continue with Miku here. If any of you guys missed it, yeah, I did two parts before this, so I've already started Miku's route in case some of you might have missed it. But this is the third part that I'm doing now. But it'll all be in a playlist in case you can't find it. So yeah, so it'll be there. And I also may, make a separate playlist with Miku in case you can't find it as well, but we'll see on that. But now, we made some choices. We're in day 4. We're going to have to do the Shirk thing once again, something I'm not really the biggest fan of. But we're not going with anybody this time, so I'm curious how this is going to play out. Might be a little bit creepier than it usually would be, but we'll see. So for now, let's see where it goes. Obviously, the first thing I did after getting out after that was inhale a great breath of fresh air. The sun was setting. I decided to take a walk. It's highly unlikely that I will find anything more exciting to do for the rest of the evening. That way, something interesting could arise quite unexpectedly. I was approaching the square when I heard a loud bang. It seemed like something had exploded. I was paralyzed. I am in a hostile environment, not knowing the rules and laws of this place. It would be better for me to run, but at the same time, I was curious. Probably I would have just kept standing there, but somebody grabbed my hand. It was Olga the Mutual. Why are you standing there? Let's go and see what happened. Can't you ever manage without me? I begged her pitifully. Well, you were curious about the sound there, though, Simeon, so might as well go and investigate, right? It shouldn't be anything serious. I hope. You hope. When we came to the square, there was already a crowd of pioneers. Olga vigorously pushed through the crowd and approached the crime scene. Obviously, someone had tried to blow up Genda. I kind of already knew who it was, but in case you're new to this, yeah, you're gonna see the culprit pretty soon, so. But the attackers failed. The monument was still standing upright. There were only dim ash traces on the pedestal. Well, who did this? She looked over the crowd of pioneers. Surely it wasn't done by an organized terrorist organization. These guys all came here just to look at what happened. I noticed Ilyana and Alyssa in the crowd. Who else would it be? And it looks like our camp leader noticed them too. You two, come here. They approached reluctantly. Why always me? If you think so. Show me your hands, Dvechkai. What's wrong with them? I looked closer and saw that they were smooth and black. Now it's clear. What did you make a bone with? The junior terrorists seemed to hesitate over whether or not to confess, but then blurted out bluntly. I can get a common. Salt, pepper, saltpeter, and sulfur. Wait a minute. Carbon. Carbon that she stole from the first aid kit. Well, yeah, that time she kinda did, but although the other time you were gonna give it to her, is that what it was? No. Why exactly the monument? What did this other man ever do to you to fight for the rights of... That angry face. I can hardly imagine how long she would have kept on scolding Alyssa if electronic had popped out at that very moment, shouting. I found it! I found it! Everyone turned towards him. He held a boot in his hand. Here. Electronic boastfully shook it over his head. It's Shirk's boot. Okay, calm down. Tell us in detail where you found it. In the forest. On the way to the old camp. Whispers ran among the pioneers. I do find it interesting how this old camp was all of a sudden only mentioned on the 4th day. But I guess, they have to save it for some point, right? Oh, camp. The old pioneers? The old camp. It just said pioneers, so I'm not really sure why that was red, because, I don't know. But I kind of voiced it a little odd there. Are you sure? Absolutely. What's so special about this old camp? joined in the conversation. That's nothing special, really, she stuttered. One, one of the Sylvian legends tell the story of a young captain's ghost living there. She did in love. She fell in love with a pioneer, but he rejected her, and so she killed herself. She committed harikari with a kitchen knife. My goodness, that face. You would be the only one I know. I mentioned this last time in her route that she probably would smile or something like that. That's kind of creepy when you think about it. I don't know. Next day, that boy was hit by a bus. Truck route, is that what it is? You know, the whole idea is like, you know how they make somebody die at a VN sometimes? It's usually one of two things. You get hit by some type of vehicle, or it's like I don't know, some other way, but it's very rare that you find a way how the person's parent dies at a VN sometimes, or I don't know, it's just weird like that. Bus. I refrain from asking about the route number. The science doesn't acknowledge the existence of ghosts, so we have nothing to be afraid of. Anyway, somebody should go there. Suddenly, the crowd started to thin out. Oh, good to meet you, Nova. It's almost night. Maybe tomorrow. I turned around and saw Slavian leaning. What if at night? What if at night something happens to him? No, not today. No. By the way, where is this place? Electronic roughly described to me the directions and told me the story of the old camp. The camp leader looked at me attentively. If you think that you're the only man here. You mean more like he's the only man you have to do things for because the other two are usually unreliable. I looked around the area. Of course, Electronic was quick to flee. I still didn't want to walk in the woods alone. If you ask me, I would. Let me make a quick save because, that's just kind of how I am. But I'm pretty positive we're going to go alone here. So, because these other ones, obviously, you're going with somebody. So, I can't see where Miku would pop up somewhere if we go with one of them. So, let's try this. Let's go alone. I might go in there alone. Olga looked thoughtful. Perhaps you're right. We'll go together tomorrow morning. Is this going to be a little different? Because, I don't know. We stood in silence for some time, then dispersed around the camp. Everybody seemingly forgot about Alyssa and her terrorist act, maybe due to the minor damage it caused. Together with the camp leader, I went towards our cabin. I tried to think of why Shirk would go to the old camp. He is interested in robots and cybernetics, not scary stories and ghosts. But you also don't really know much about the guy, do you? Outside of the fact that, it's coincidence how he ended up going there, isn't it? And then we come to find out the robot that he built looks identical to something in this game, which has to do with the main plot. What does that boot have to do with that? I remembered how I decided to wait until something extraordinary would happen. And then I realized this is it. Olga, I think I'll take a walk before bed. Just not a long one. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna take a walk. How's this gonna go? When I reached the square, because by this point he would have already went with somebody, and then he would have came up to the camp at some point. When I reached the square, I understood that hanging around in the forest or some other strange place may not be that scary. But doing so in the dark, I didn't want to return to Olga Dimitriova's cabin, but I had to find a flashlight. For instance, there was one in the infirmary. Unless if he still ends up going there anyway, because he mentioned about taking a walk. Maybe he doesn't want people to know he's going to go. I don't know. I was glad I didn't spend my whole time there reading the fashion magazine. The flashlight was found quickly, and in a few minutes, I was again standing at the square, pulling myself together. I just had to make the final decision before I entered the forest. Yeah, so he is going there. Moving past the pioneers' cabins, down the forest path towards the abandoned camp. So he is going by himself. I said 4. Electronic told me that the old building was built immediately after the war. So he doesn't really want to go, but he goes anyway. That's kind of funny. Maybe he just didn't want them to know where he was going. That's my guess. Looked like a kindergarten or like a barracks, I expected. And definitely could hold fewer pioneers than today's camp. Because I could imagine if they all go with him, there's no way that he's going to run into anybody. Especially, Eula. There's no way that she's going to come with a bunch of people around. It had been abandoned for about 20 years. And Miku's also the kind of the type as well that doesn't. Well, she may show up, but it's usually for him. She does. If you ever notice, she does not. But what I've seen anyway, she very rarely interacts with the other campers there. She, some ways I guess you could say she's kind of a loner. I don't know. It was now totally dark. The forest looked totally different at night. Mysterious shadows were hiding behind the trees, strange rustlings, and the cries of night birds coming from everywhere, branches treacherously snapping under my feet. The full moon was shining, so I decided to save the battery in the flashlight. I'm sure it will need it sometime soon. The further I moved, the more unpleasant thoughts came into my head. I wasn't afraid of the dark at all. I didn't believe in ghosts and other mystical crap, but at the same time, during the last few days, I encountered so many incomprehensible phenomena that against my own will, I started to read between the lines of the simplest things. Obviously, I felt exceptionally uneasy in the forest at night. Everywhere I looked, every shadow, every tree or bush looked like weird creatures, escaping straight from horror movies or from Stephen King novels. A branch seemed to be someone's hand, eager to grab your shoulder, a fallen log, somebody's dead body, someone who failed to get out of the forest. At every gully, I saw a bottomless abyss. If I had found myself in this forest under any circumstances without all these buses of pioneer camps, of course I would still feel uncomfortable, but then I would be able to explain everything with logic and be afraid of nothing, except the owls and mice, of course. And at the moment, there were more than enough reasons to fear. Despite all this, I reached the old camp without any adventures. Yep. In a little glade surrounded by trees stood a house resembling a kindergarten. Would that look like a kindergarten to you? Not really. I mean, it looks like an old building, but doesn't exactly have the shape of a school building, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's kind of a, it's kind of a big, it's kind of a decent sized building, but I don't know. But then again, who knows? What it could be. It could be used for a lot of different things. If you look at it, it almost looks like the shape of an apartment building. If I'm being honest, I don't know, like an abandoned apartment that nobody uses anymore. Paint peeled off the walls almost. The windows were broken. Broken masonry here and there, holes in the roof that looked like those made by a bombing. I'm gonna do some forwarding because there's really nobody he's talking to at the moment. It said chills down my spine, but I don't want to go too far. Of course, my imagination was playing tricks, but the old camp itself was so similar to all the post-apocalyptic pictures I had seen that these visions were no surprise. I stood undecided for a long time before I dared to go further. After all, I'm here to find shit. Though I still don't get what he might be doing here. If he is even here. A boot somewhere nearby doesn't mean anything. However, if he was not eaten by wolves, for some reason it seemed like there were no wolves in this forest. This must be the only place where he might be hiding. No, but there is someone you're describing here that I guess you could say is sort of an in-between version of that. Interesting how you mentioned that there. I carefully crossed the yard, pushing the tall grass apart and trying not to bump into a jagged piece of metal. But I stopped in the doorway, hesitating. An impenetrable, heavy darkness stared back at me from inside. Even the bright moonlight cannot illuminate any object or even highlight a silhouette. My head was filled up with different thoughts that all said that it's better for me to not go any further and run away quickly. But I pulled myself together, turned on the flashlight, and stepped over the threshold. Yeah. So it's a little bit kind of like, him actually exploring the whole thing. rather than being with somebody. But so I'm gonna do a little bit of forwarding because there's not a whole lot going on here. But I don't want to go too fast in case you might run into somebody here. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting, but after you've seen this place after so many times, it really has no effect. And scary things don't really get to be that much anyway. You have to do quite a lot to kind of get me. Uh, that being said, I can handle uh, certain types of gore type stuff though. Like when it gets a little on the gory side, there are things that can turn your stomach a little bit. Depends on what it is, Like some of it I can handle, and it's not so much that it's scary. It's more like, can you stomach getting watching this? I always say, I don't know. There's been a handful of movies where I couldn't finish it because it was just too like, I don't know, too much gore going on there to where like it's like, was all this necessary? I don't know. Downstairs, it was so dark that even the flashlight didn't help much. Low ceiling, wires extending along the halls, broken lamps, clad in iron bars. Yeah, I've seen it all somewhere. So, I'm going to do a little forwarding here because there's not really a whole lot. Soon I find myself in front of a massive metal door. My guess is he's going to get spooked by Miku coming down here. Because how's he going to bump into her is my question. I don't know. There was a sign painted on it. I looked closely and realized that it was a biohazard sign. No wonder. If the old camp was built after the war and it lasted until the 70s, so it's an ordinary bomb shelter and there is nothing to be afraid of. However, those thoughts made me even more scared. I made a decision and opened the door. Let's see. Which immediately shut with a sharp sound as soon as I stepped through the doorway. Boy, oh boy. That would give everything away, wouldn't it? So loud. You'd be like, oh, why'd you have to be loud? But he probably didn't really pay attention to the door shutting either. I shuddered strongly. My hands began to tremble and my vision dimmed. Going through our apartment building, that shit gets on my nerves too. Sometimes you coming in, sometimes on occasion, cause we're like on the second floor, like where we live, and sometimes when people are closing that door down there, you can hear it on occasion, and especially when you're down there. And some people, it's like when they open it all the way, and when that thing slams, like you hear it, it's like, my goodness, could you not like go in and then hold the door enough to where it does close? Like, do you really need to let the door slam? I mean, unless you're carrying something heavy, that might be different. But would you really put something in the way for that door to not do that, right? If you have to get in from someplace, I don't know. That's kind of funny. I found myself in a quite spacious room. And this room is going to get pretty familiar when we go through here, when we do yours, Rob, as well. So that's going to be interesting. In the beam of the flashlight, I could see a bunk bed, some cabinets along the walls, and several devices of unknown purpose located in the far corner. It seems that this bomb shelter has never been used. Nobody ever came here. The beds were made, which is strange in itself. It's probably old, man. I carefully looked around the room several times. You gotta figure, this is Russia, right? There's probably plenty of places that are not used and abandoned, right? Because you figure, okay, after World War II, where some Russians actually went to live underground. Yeah, there were some that did. Because you figure, with chemical weapons and chemical, bombs and stuff like that, Russia wasn't the only, Germany, wasn't the only people. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that not Germany, but Japan's not the only ones that got bombed. Yeah, they got the big ones, but Russia got bombed too with different things. And I can only imagine, breathing that kind of stuff in back then, it wouldn't really be healthful to be on the surface quite a bit. So I've read stories about people that had to live under old bomb shelters because it was the only way that they could survive. I can imagine. So by the time that they were able to get back to the surface, I'd imagine these places like this would have been long abandoned, nothing in them. So they would appear like, old ghost town or something, I don't know. The devices, which at first could determine the purpose of, were gauges and radiation, air pressure, and temperature. In short, it was a typical bomb shelter. Yeah, I just said that. I'd never been in such a place before, but it was how I'd imagined it. No, I could imagine it too. Long abandoned. The only thing that remained unexplored was the door at the other end of the room. I got a question for a couple of you guys, since a few of myself might be Russian. Who do you think was the worst in history in terms of, for World War II? Who do you think was the biggest threat? Some people would say, because you figure with, because you had, at one point, Russia was against us, but then at certain points they actually allied with America, if I'm recalling, and they went against Germany a few times. Now, they didn't exactly do it for America's benefit. There was for other reasons why. Because some people say, why did they, at one part of the war, they were against us, and all of a sudden, because with Russia, you figure they were under the Cold War. We fought them for a completely different reason to what Germany was trying to do with the Nazis and, and all that stuff. Then you had Italy with Mussolini. Some of you guys know about him. And then you had Japan. I'm going to say, I still say Germany was probably the worst out of the two. Because while Russia, they were communists and stuff like that, they were more like, it was a little bit different in their terminology, though. They didn't necessarily believe in the whole Nazi thing and all that kind of stuff. It was a little bit different. But some people kind of term it the same way, though. But it was just a certain belief that they had. They wanted to control most of the region that they were in. So, like, with Russia, they were doing some certain things. Japan was pretty bad. A lot of people don't realize at one point they weren't really all that great to their own citizens, to their own people. So they were doing a lot of things like what I wouldn't say quite to the level of what Germany was doing, with Hitler, but it was pretty bad. At least from what I understand. My grandfather, if he was still alive, he would explain it much better than I would. Because, with Germany, it wasn't just Jews they were going after. They were doing things that was, uh, that was completely, you wouldn't think that they would be capable of doing. But that. If you guys ever played a game called Killzone, that was kind of based on the whole Nazi, like, I don't know, games and whatnot. So that would be kind of explain those. So just kind of wanted to ask some of you guys a question that might be watching this, if you guys ever know. So let me know what you guys think anyway in terms of history, though. I'm gonna say Russia was the least threat of them, of the main four, because we did fight Russia at one point. You have to figure. But they did ally with us towards the end of it. Like, in the beginning, like, I can't remember what we were fighting Russia for, because they had Stalin, right? Stalin was, considered to be a brutal dictator. But I wouldn't really put him on the same level with Hitler, though. Some people might, though. Depends on how you look at it. Obviously, like I said. So, to me, I would still say it's a toss between Germany, Italy, and Japan in terms of like who I think was the worst one. I don't know. I think Russia was the least biggest threat. Some people would say otherwise because they were trying to dominate certain places over there. I don't know. Depends on how you look at it, though. But at the end of the day, they fought for completely different reasons. They had nothing to do with not what Germany was doing, but so that's what that was. But let me get back to the plot here. Okay. So he's calling out to him, so yeah. Because at some point I'm going to have to make a choice here, and I'm not exactly sure which way I'm going to go with this. Because it doesn't really say. I went further and further. It seems there is no end to these tunnels, like I am trapped in the Minotaur's labyrinth and the terrible creatures will appear soon. I was exhausted and slowly slid down to the ground, leaning against the mine's damp walls. Where is that damn shirt? And how many hours have I been walking around here? The other reason, getting back to it, the reason why I say Germany was the worst because I'm half German. Some people would say you're throwing our own people under the bus. No, like because they were also a problem to Russia as well. Which is another reason why Russia ended up fighting them alongside us at one point. Because I can't remember how it all went. Like I said, if my grandfather was still around, he would explain it better. What turned the tide. In some ways, I think without Russia's intervention, we might not have gotten through World War II because to think about it, Hitler didn't control just Russia. I mean, not just Germany. There were other places that Hitler had a foothold in besides Germany. He also had the Swedes at one point. He had France. He had a lot of places that he controlled. In terms of like all that over there. And not to mention that they were pretty good allies with Italy when it came to Mussolini and a few others. So, I mean, you combine that, though. That's why I think, to me, those, that's the bigger threat to me, anyway. Japan's thing, when they got into it, it was like a few. Once we dropped a couple of bombs on them, that was it. They didn't really. They came in towards like the tail end of the war. Like, so when we started fighting them, like, it didn't really, like, it was like some people would say it was like near the tail end of it. And it was mostly the only reason we ended up fighting Japan, anyways, because, like, they wanted to, claim Hawaii, which at the time we were trying to do that. So that's kind of what that was over, fight that over. Some people feel like, they're not really sure if that was a mistake or not to fight Japan or not. It's hard to say, but since then, they have been westernized ever since, so, yeah. So, I'm not exactly sure what happened here, so, uh, well, nothing happened back there. Whoa, that was kind of interesting. Huh. So I didn't actually have to make a choice because usually you take a little detour in there and you just came out. Because sometimes a dream is just a dream. One doesn't have to look it up on the internet searching for an interpretation of a dream that invaded your dream world in such a rude manner. One doesn't have to assume that it's a sign, a prophecy, a prediction of the future. I should play the Metro games on the channel because all three Metro games have to do with Russia, set in Russia. But it has something completely different, though. It's more like, it's like a distant future, but you're fighting mutants and monsters and things like that instead of like. Although you do fight people, but it's a little different, though. And it's kind of interesting in there. You have one group called the Reds that kind of represents like a communist group. And then you have Nazi people, which were like people who actually believed in that sort of thing. I don't know. And then you have just your regular Russians who, don't really agree with that kind of lifestyle. So it's I don't know. It's interesting how that they do it in that game. Sometimes a dream is just a dream, even if it comes in several parts. Okay. So nothing really happened back there. Okay. And what are we on the bus? Damn, I'm so tired of all this. Masha. And this is the first time we're getting different name for her. Huh? I raised my eyes and saw a girl hanging over me. What exactly are you tired of? Everything. It's not like someone made you do this, or is still making you. This is a new scene, by the way. Well, it's not that simple. Oh, it is indeed quite that simple. Damn, you always. Stop chatting. Come on, get to work. A voice that would brook no objections came from far away. That eye raise. Not really sure what that is, but that's an interesting look. Okay, I'll take it. The bus became empty in an instant. The girl I was arguing with sulked like a child, turned abruptly, clicked her heels, and headed to the exit. Now, I'm not exactly sure if Semyon's here or somebody else is completely talking to her. or whatever is going on in this scene, but I'll just try to voice it as best I can here. Obviously, this had to do with another time, or I don't know. But he's dreaming this, so that can't really be that case. I don't know. Or is this actually? Her name was Masha. Okay. Okay, you ready? A woman appeared. Her face simultaneously expressed agony for the fates of the whole of humanity, arrogance, concentration, and fatigue. Yeah, sure. Excellent. And they keep saying me. I'm pretty positive it's got to be Simeon, unless it's someone else. But then again, he doesn't know Miku by the name of Masha, at least as far as I'm concerned. Then, action. I didn't even realize when she left the bus and the camera appeared, pointing at me. I've shut my eyes, that's right. I must be sleeping according to the script. Huh. How long must I sit like that? 10 seconds? 20? That should be enough. Okay. I slowly opened my eyes and started to sweep the bus with an ignorant look. That's it. I haven't got the slightest idea why am I here. What is this? An Icarus? But why? So I had to put on the most surprised face that I've ever done. I should imagine that I'm sitting in a toilet reading a book, and then the door suddenly swings open and I see Jean Reno with a gun. Pardon me, do you mind that I'm doing number 2 here? What in the world? Yeah, I probably would mind. He would surely be surprised. I just couldn't bear it and laughed out loud. Stop, yelled the director. It's an outrage. We've already been shooting for a week, but you still got less than nothing. She jumped close to me. What's the matter this time? Well, she would hardly appreciate my story about Jean Reno. I'm sorry. It was hard to look her in the eyes. It wasn't like I was really worried about messing up yet another take, but mainly because I was afraid to break into laughter again. Okay, let's break. Our director took off her Panama hat and began to fan herself with it. It's so hot. Well, it's summer after all. Interesting, you're here. Okay. Sure came out of thin air, proving himself to be quite observant. Duh, look at you better take care of the camera. Sure called me duh for Panama responding and went back to his camera. He's always like that, calm, wise, and boring, full and quite believable. I got out of the bus and headed to the canteen to grab a bite. And ran into Masha at the doors. Now, how does he know her by this name? Is this Simeon? It's gotta be. Because, I don't know, this scene kind of threw me off a little bit. We went from back there, and all of a sudden, they just kind of fast-forwarded something. Not exactly sure what's going on, but I'm trying to read this, though. That was kind of an interesting change in direction, so how they did that. But then again, it did kind of go to another day, so maybe they just kind of fast-forwarded, and he got to know her name. I don't know, but I would have liked to have heard her say this to him, if this is Simeon. I'm not sure. I would have liked a proper introduction, but it is what it is. So, nothing. No surprise. Want to have something to eat? Because if we know if this was Simeon, he would be trying to blow her off, right? At least that's the way he would go about it. So if they did some forwarding here, I don't know. That's a complete 180 from what I've been seeing all this time. I don't know. She stared at me for some time with an uncompromising, comprehending look. Yeah, a different look that we're not used to getting from her, isn't it? Okay, let's go. It's strange. Seems that Masha has already visited the canteen. What is it? Didn't she have time to have her lunch? I examined her thoroughly from behind. Her double ponytails were really long and dangled from side to side, now and then hitting whatever they encountered on the way. Good Lord. Are you sure that you're comfortable with your hair like that? Me. And again, with the me. Can we say who you are here? I asked Masha when we sat down the table. What's the problem? Well, they're kinda way too long, no? It's a part of my character, dork. Wow, that's a different look. Wow, you're actually showing a different side of your personality that I'm kind of familiar with. It's like, what happened to what happened to you from early on? Complete change, right? As if they were any shorter before that. She threw an angry glance at me. She finally stirred the contents of her packet of instant noodles. Good Lord. One day I'm gonna get what? Gas? Gastritis? Gastritis? Thanks to this diet, I have no idea. Just trying to pronounce that word was a little hard there. I already got it. Oh sure. I bet you have already drunk all the stage props together with these guys. And what's wrong with that? I'm not paid for this work, just so you know. And it's hard, the leading role after all. I don't think the cameras and filming tape. Oh, it's like you're going for an Oscar. Who knows, who knows. I reclined on the chair and lit up a cigarette. Just for your information, it's a children's camp here, in case you've forgotten. Also, maybe this isn't singing, and she's talking to somebody else here. But if this is the case, I feel a little bit cheated and robbed here. I would have liked Symia to hear this name. I don't know. But yes, this is Miku's name as opposed to Hatsune. But it works either way. Yeah, you see any kids around? Masha just sniffed and didn't reply. And by the way, all the great ones had to start with something. Some of them, for instance, started with a graduation project. Not a single sane human would ever think of shooting such wild garbage. She gazed wirily around with an intimidated look, making sure that nobody except us was at the canteen and continued. Only the Oga would. It's not like someone made you do it. Oh yeah, Masha said slowly with bitterness in her voice. Like I had a choice, or you did, or anyone else. Well, for starters, you could have proposed another subject. To propose a subject? What subject? All this time, Masha had been sprinkling salt all over her noodle cup, and it seemed she wasn't going to stop. I see you like it spicy. What? I directed my gaze at her cup. Dumb. She slammed the salt shaker down the table and sadly dropped her eyes to the small hill of salt that, like an iceberg fighting global warming, just refused to dissolve in the broth. Oh, come on. I suddenly felt sorry for Masha. Anyway, I could hardly digest this crap. Sandwiches are way better. Here. I pushed my bowl in her direction. She took it silently and began to eat. Won't you even thank me? But it's completely your fault. What exactly? You distracted me and I... Anyway, it's your fault. Whatever. Masha kept eating in silence. I finished smoking and stubbed the cigarette out on the corner of the table. What exactly don't you like about it? Well, it's actually fine. If you get used to it. Lovely noodles. I looked at Masha in a way that made clear exactly how silly and irrelevant her answer was. You're talking about the movie. About the movie. Take my character, for example. Although, never mind using it as an example. It's the worst part of the script. Were you even reading this as we wrote it? For the first 2 days, the laziness took over. Well, I read it. So what? Does this seem normal to you? What exactly? Character. My character. What's the problem with it? I decided to play the fool to the end. Stop mocking me. Wow, that's a little more familiar to the Miku that I'm familiar with. But it's completely different from the Miku that started this being. I don't know what to think right now. It's kind of like we went from one character to this one, but I don't know. I'm liking her though, you know.
I mentioned before, that Miku Hatsune is a tsundere. But this is a little bit different. Seems more like she's irritated with someone here. If this is Semyon or not, I have no idea. But they keep saying me here. So it's kind of throwing me off seeing that word me. I don't know. If Liz could kill, my death would have been a pretty painful one. Alright. Calm down. Masha fixed her gaze on me. What's the matter with your character? Just a normal retarded girl. My goodness. Wow. That would get a little bit of an angry stare there, wouldn't it? There are so many around anyway, no? She turned red at first, then blue, then she turned green. I'm not sure that the changing of colors on her face during a fraction of a second was really like that, but either way, Masha looked scared. That's disgusting, she said, suddenly getting a grip. I think it's perfectly normal. The cast of a movie, or a book for that matter, can't consist only of cute, smart, and sexy characters. We still need supporting roles. Supporting, but no retarded. It's not like we don't encounter them in real life. But I'm not like that. But you're not playing yourself after all. Your stubbornness started to get on my nerves. People will watch it and say, Masha's a retard. I covered my face with hands and put my head down on the table. So maybe there's another side that Simeon might not know of her? I have no idea.
But I like everything about Miku, so I would accept her, whatever the case. Happy, mean, sad, doesn't really make a difference. Okay, what do you suggest now? I don't know. Everything is just bad. Will it get better if you just keep crying and moaning? I'm not moaning. Oh, like I can't hear it. Well, I'd prefer it if I could. You know what? I opened one eye and looked up at the enraged Masha. What? You're just an insensitive bastard. As you say, mademoiselle. And? She did manage to finish the phrase. The door burst open and a cheerful shout reached us. Mashinyan Semyon-kun. What? So this is Semyon. Oh, here comes another raving lunatic. Oh Lord, what have I done wrong? What? Slavia in the scene? This is different. I turned my head and glanced skeptically at the girl who ran into the canteen. Yeah, that's Slavia. Sasha. No, your name is Slavia. What? Sasha? Where'd that name come from? I thought it was Slavia. One of the main characters. Oh wait, or are they just playing a character? I don't know what's going on, guys. My head is just... This game is kind of giving me a migraine at the moment. No, it's a good one, but not really good. Yeah. Oh no. If we compare Sasha Roulette with the character she's going to play, then Masha's words about the injustice of this world don't seem that meaningless. So Slavia's playing a different character, and Miku's playing someone else too. I don't know. It's kind of weird on this. Over on the bright side, one can't ignore Sasha's acting talent. She really becomes a total different person on the screen. I told you like 1,000 times. Don't you ever call me Masha Ian? Masha gritted her teeth. Okay, then it would be Mashian. Can I? Sasha snatched a chair, moved it closer, and sat beside me. Freaking cuckoo. How do people like that enter college in the first place? Man, yeah. What are you talking about? Sasha seemed to ignore Masha's opinion of her professional priority. Oh, we were just discussing what exactly Masha Yan doesn't like about our script. Just you wait. Till I beat the neon out of you. Good lord. Tried to land a punch in my forehead, but I dodged and her fist slammed down the table. Sasha gave a brief cry and started shivering. See how disconcerted she is. A curious young mind, she doesn't seek any compromises. Ready for long, painstaking work, for self-sacrifice and denial of the fragile material world. And all for what? For the truth. Wow, you're so smart. Sasha murmured and hugged my arm. Too bad you are not. No, you're helpless. I'll take that as a compliment. Masha fetched her phone out of her pocket and checked the time. Okay, time to get going. Where are you going? You only appeared starting day 2. It's you who should get going, Thorpe. Me too, me too. Sasha jumped around, started still clinging to my arm. I guess so. I got up, pushed the chair back under the table, and looked over at Masha. See you. Oh, get going. She snorted and turned away. Ikidekimasu. Get lost. Just as that reached my ears, Sasha shot past me with an empty noodle package trailing in her wake. Sitting in the bus, flipping through the script lazily.